Welcome to the AFR Saints channel, where we provide you daily content on your favorite team, the New Orleans Saints. Do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. Be sure to leave your comments below and smash that like button. Who dat? The Saints appear to be getting closer to hiring an offensive coordinator. And there's a little bit of news as I'll kind of go through it today. There's several candidates as they've apparently started to pare down the list of finalists here as they get closer to naming somebody. And earlier in the day, or late last night, I guess, Nick Underhill tweeted that the Saints' search for an offensive coordinator has narrowed considerably. They have honed in on their candidates and are adhering to league rules as they go through the process. So Nick tweets that the Saints are getting close. They're narrowing down their list. They're honing in on their candidates. Well, then we find out today that the Saints have a new candidate on the list that they're looking to interview. It was Tom Pelissero who had it first earlier today that the New Orleans Saints were set to interview a Ravens assistant, Greg Lewis, their wide receiver coach, for the offensive coordinator job. He notes Lewis is a former NFL receiver who won 2 Super Bowls on Andy Reid's staff in Kansas City before joining Baltimore this past season. So, connecting all the dots here, we keep waiting for the Saints to make an announcement. Apparently, they're paring down the list. Then we hear a new name. And then Albert Breer, just a bit ago, tweeted that ex-Bears offensive coordinator Luke Getsy is in New England today interviewing with the Patriots and will have a second interview for the Saints OC job tomorrow, Wednesday, in New Orleans. So Getsy isn't a name we've talked about, but that's a guy who apparently is about to get his second interview with the Saints. And now the Saints have added Greg Lewis to their list, their ever-growing list, as supposedly, reportedly, they're paring their list down. So what do we make of all this? I don't know. I wonder if the Saints are being thorough, which is fine, by the way. If you are being thorough, I'm perfectly good with that. There's no need to rush a hire. You're not playing a game tomorrow. I mean, you have a contingent at the Senior Bowl doing scouting. You've got Combine coming up and draft and all that stuff. And yeah, you'd love to have your OC in place to get input there, but it's not critical today to have your OC hire. So if you're being thorough so you don't settle, okay, I'm good with that. But I can't decide if they're being thorough or if they're being indecisive. Like, follow me along here. There are 3 known candidates that are no longer on the board. Dan Pitcher, the Cincinnati Bengals quarterbacks coach, has been elevated to offensive coordinator. Shane Waldron, who was with the Seahawks, has taken the OC job in Chicago. And Zach Robinson, who is with the Rams, has taken the OC job in Atlanta. So it's 3 known candidates who are no longer on the board. And then there's this whole other list of candidates that we know the Saints have interviewed or are going to interview. Gerard Johnson, the quarterbacks coach in Houston, is interviewed twice. We've heard Clint Kubiak and Brian Griese. Ronald Curry is the in-house candidate. Mike Sullivan with the Steelers. Brian Johnson, who was just let go in Philly. And now Greg Lewis with Baltimore. Then there's this one-off of John Gruden that keeps getting mentioned, but doesn't seem like there's any real legitimacy to that. But I guess we'll follow it and see. Maybe the Saints are waiting on Kubiak and or Griese. They're both coaching with the 49ers. The 49ers are still playing. Maybe this week is when they can make some type of formal overtures toward them interview. We'll see. I don't know. If that's the case, and those are the guys that you're really waiting to talk to, and you had to wait until you found a moment when you could, okay, good. That's being thorough. That's being patient. That's waiting for your guy, and I'm okay with that. But if that's not the case, the longer you wait, you're not making the decision. The decision is made for you. The longer you wait and coaches take other jobs, your list starts to narrow and starts to get pared down, not by your doing, but by the fact that other teams have hired desirable candidates. And, we've talked about this enough, and I do wonder how much there is to it, but are the Saints handcuffed here because they're not a desirable job? Yes, they are. This is an NFL offensive coordinator job, and there are going to be candidates that want this Saints OC job, but candidates who have options are more likely to pick better options than a New Orleans team that very well could have a lame duck coach and an aging quarterback that isn't great. I mean, there's a lot of unrest around the organization. Listen, Michael Thomas tweeting about how nobody wants to be the offensive coordinator, while that stings, and you never want to air your dirty laundry in public. You do that in-house. There's probably a hint or hints of truth to that. Like, not to say nobody wants it, but yeah, I'd imagine you would have a harder time finding an offensive coordinator in New Orleans than you would in Chicago, where they're going to have the number one overall pick, or with the Rams, where they do have great offenses, or like Zach Robinson going with Raheem Morris to Atlanta, where they're getting a fresh start. You very well, any OC could be taking this job, understanding that it could be a one-year deal and you're packing up and moving again somewhere else if Dennis Allen gets fired. And so much is going to be dictated to you because the quarterback's already in place. So there's a lot of variables with this job. And I don't know where the wheel ultimately is going to stop spinning and land. If it is Greg Lewis, quick thumbnail on him. Greg Lewis's path is actually a lot like Cortez Hankton's. Played professional football for about a decade. They're both about the same age. Hankton's 42. Greg Lewis is 43. Lewis, you might remember, played for the Eagles, Patriots, and Vikings. When he played for the Eagles, he was in that Super Bowl against the Patriots, the one with Donovan McNabb and the one where T.O. came off the broken leg to play in the Super Bowl. He actually had a touchdown reception in that game, by the way. But in any event, got into coaching about a decade ago, was at University of San Diego, then San Jose State, then Pitt, and then his first NFL job actually was in New Orleans as an offensive assistant on Sean Payton's staff back in 2015. And then he went to the Eagles, then spent 6 years with the Chiefs, won a couple of Super Bowls, and this year was his first year in Baltimore with the Ravens. So former NFL receiver who's been coaching in the NFL since 2015, has familiarity with New Orleans and with Dennis Allen. Dennis Allen has familiarity with him. So there's a lot of things there that make sense about it, but are you hiring a first-time play caller, which a lot of the guys on this list would be first-time play callers. Gerard Johnson, Clint Kubiak, Brian Griese, Ronald Curry, Greg Lewis. So the other three we mentioned, Dan Pitcher, Zach Robinson, those guys would be first-time play callers at this level. So, again, Nick Underhill's reporting the Saints have narrowed down their search, and they're nearing in on a decision, and that's great. But it also feels a bit counterintuitive when they're introducing or we're learning about new candidates now as they're paring down their list. But maybe they're there, maybe they're close. Maybe they're waiting on the San Francisco guys. The new name today is Greg Lewis. And again, the report just a bit ago is that they have a second interview planned with Luke Getsy, the former Bears offensive coordinator. Where this wheel stops, I guess we'll find out soon enough. My only question, are you being thorough or are you being indecisive? If you're being thorough, that's fine. If you're being indecisive, I think that continues to speak to one of the things that is plaguing this organization under the leadership of Dennis Allen. Eventually going to have to make a decision. Make a good one, because it could be the last OC that Dennis Allen hires as the Saints head coach if he screws it up. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.